Welcome back. Hello there, Internet. So, we have another exciting tutorial for you. This time, we are going to examine how to write a text file. So, in the last tutorial, we discussed how to read from a text file, and this time, we are going to discuss how to write to one. So, it's really simple. If you watch the last tutorial, you know how to read from a text file, but how do you write to one? And why would you want to? So, we are going to discuss those things. So, let's get started. So in order to write to a text file, we have to create a new file. Let's go ahead and create a brand new file. Let's create a new file. We name it write.c. Let's just name it that. Okay, where did our file go? So we start off with the usual. Oh, wait a minute. Do we have it right? Let's see. Is it include? Yes, it is include. So let's go ahead and get started with include, and we're gonna include as usual our stdio.h, and let's go ahead and create a main, and we are going to go ahead and create a main. We call it void because we're not doing anything with it, and let's go ahead and print hello world just to make sure that it works. And there we have our hello world. Let's go ahead and save it. Once we save it, let's go ahead and make sure that it runs. Oh, let's not forget our return 0. Let's go ahead and run it, and we called it right, so let's go ahead and compile it. We can call it whatever we want. Let's call it write.exe, and we want the write.c file, and it does work. So let's go ahead and execute it, make sure it works. Hello world, there we go, we got started. So let's go ahead and start writing. So if you can remember from the last time, in order to read from a file, we had to create a file stream, and we use that using the file pointer fp, and then we can say fopen, and we give it the path to a file. So this time we are going to create a file if it exists, and we are going to add some lines. So what do we want to do? Let's go to my temp directory because I know I have a file there, and I forgot my other slash. And let's call this file, we can call the file whatever we want because it's going to create it. And let's call this file, to continue with the last example, we'll call it students. Students new, we'll call it students1.dat. We can call it anything we want. It's a flat file, and we want to append to it. We want to append and create it if it doesn't exist. As usual, we say if fp not equal null, then we can write to it. And then finally we can close it by calling the close command and pass it the file pointer, and we take and we write something to it. And what we do for writing to a file, we can do in fputs. So we are going to use the fputs function, and it's very simple. We just write something hello. Well, let's just write here we write line 1, and we have to pass it the file pointer. As always with any file writing you're doing or reading, you have to pass it the full file pointer, and we can pass it another one. And let's go ahead and write one line and write another line, and here write line 2, and let's see if it actually writes lines. So let's go ahead and save it, and let's go ahead and run it. First we have to compile it, and then we want to run it. And then the other way we can check to see if our file is there, and it didn't give us any error, so we can assume that it's there, and we can see students1.dat, and we can open it, and let's see what it contains. Ooh, it didn't like that. Hold on a second. Let's open with, it's not gonna matter, so let's just open it. Always use this app. Okay, What apps? Look for an app. No, I don't want that app. I want Notepad. Here we write one line, and you notice it didn't write a new line, so we have to account for the new line character when we do fputs. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's write it again. So this time let's put a return character, and we are going to name the line something different this time. Here we write line 3, and here we write line 4, and we save it, and we go ahead and compile it, and we go ahead and execute it, and we go and open it. And now you notice that it actually has the lines because it didn't write the new line character. When we didn't give it the new line character, it just writes whatever we tell it. So we have to account for that. So if you wanted to do something meaningful with writing to a file, well, you would probably write either a comma delimited file or a fixed length record file. And I think you get the idea of how you would write a file. Let's just take, for example, let's say we had records and we had the struct, and we have let's call it a student. Well, it's gonna be struct first of all, and then we have a name, so we have a character array of first name, and we'll make it, to make it simple, we're not gonna use define this time. We're just gonna go ahead and use a literal. We just say 30, and we say the same thing for last name, and we say 30, and then we do something else and give it age, and we give it a GPA. We use the float GPA, and then we can write some students to the file. So here we have a struct, we have that, we haven't closed it off, so let's call the struct student, and then we can write some students to the file. So let's just go ahead and write a student to the file. So if we know how to do this, we can create a student. Let's go ahead and create the student up here. And let's go ahead and set some values to student. And so we say student, let's say Mary. Well, we don't want to do it like that. We can actually do it like this. We can say student dot first name, and we have to use the copy command, string copy into student, and we want to copy the name Mary. And we do the same thing for last name. And we say Jones or something. Then we can copy. We don't copy anymore at this point. We assign last student, and we do age, and we can say 17. And for GPA, we can say equals 3.9. And then we can begin writing that data to the file. So what we can do, there's a couple different ways we can do it. We could easily say fputs, and we could say, we could just go ahead and start putting the information in. So we put the information in, and we can say something like this. We could say student dot first name, and then we leave it as that, and we could say fputs student dot last name, and then we can leave it like that. But remember, we need something to separate them, so we would need to give it a comma and then another comma. I have this wrong. So we have first name and last name, but now we need to we need to write a, uh, a string because we have GPA, so we can't simply, I don't think we can do fputs. I don't think we can do inputs. Well, first of all, let's move this down so we don't get it mixed up. Let's move it down here somewhere. So we have fputs, and now we need to put the age, and I don't think we can do something like this. I don't think this will work. So we can try, but I can pretty much rest assured that it doesn't work. So let's go ahead and save it, and let's see. Okay, we have all that. Let's compile it. And it gives us a series of errors. And let's take a look at the error. Implicit declaration of function string copy. Oh, that implicit declaration means it doesn't know what string copy is. So it doesn't know, and we know this exists, but the reason that we don't have it is because we did not include string.age. Let's see what other errors we have before we even try to compile. String copy, and then it says here, too few arguments to function fputs. Yes, we didn't pass our file pointer. We have to pass our file pointer. And we do the same thing for this one. And let's see what else we can get into. Warning, passing argument 1 fputs make pointer from integer without cast. So that's complaining about that being a integer. So it doesn't like that. So let's comment that out for now. Let's make sure everything else works. And one idea to work when you're working with code is to build a little bit, run it, compile it, make sure it works. You don't want to write a whole program and then it doesn't work. And typically you would do it through unit tests. You wouldn't necessarily do it this way, but in essence, you don't want to write a whole bunch of code and then just to find out it doesn't work. So here I made the same mistake. I need to say FP and I need to say FP here because in order to that, it needs to know the file pointer. So let's go ahead and save it, make sure it works. Let's compile it and let's execute it. Well, it'd be easier for me to just call it direct write exe. Let's go take a look at our file now. So we have our file, and you notice how it wrote this on the line, and you notice it's appending. So what's going on here? Well, the append that we have on Visual Studio, this one is going to append. If it already exists, it appends, but if it doesn't exist, it creates. We can change that to write and save it and run it again, and you will see that this time it will actually overwrite the file. So let's see, we changed it to write, so we have to compile it. We compile it. Oh, there it is. And we write, and let's go take a look at it again. We take a look at our file, and you notice that it only wrote Mary Jones. So it wrote those two things. Now, what do we need to do to write an integer? And I believe the answer can be found here. So let me bring this over here. And one of the things about the IOs, stdio, let's take a look there. And let's take a look through and find something that'll work for us. So if we look through it, we can find all sorts of things here. So let's look at the functions. We have close, we know about that. Let's see. If reopen, we're not looking for that. It might not be in this library actually. I'm looking in the wrong library. I should be looking in the standard library. So let's go look in the standard library and see. Now you remember that to convert string to an integer, you had A to I, and to convert to a float, you had A to F. But we also have other ones. So we have A to F, A to I, and let's just see what we're looking for. Nope, none of these do anything, and I think we've exhausted the end. And I think our answer is actually going to be in I want to say string.age. So let's look into here in the library and look for something that'll help us. So those don't work. String cat, that doesn't work. That joins strings together. That doesn't work. So string copy, well, we don't want that. String, and I'm looking for a particular function, and it's called, I believe it's called sprintf, but I don't see it. Let's Google it. It'd probably be faster. Sprintf. C. And sprintf. You can see the API for sprintf, and it says function sprintf sends formatted output to a string pointed to by string, and it returns an integer. And it says string. This is the pointer to an array of elements, and this is the format. And you will recognize sprintf because it's similar to printf. And what you can do with it is format strings. So what we can do is, let's go ahead and minimize this. And what we can do with those items, we can say, we can create a string GPA. Go ahead and create that up here. And we can say char array GPA string. And let's just go hard coded with 10. Ooh. Or we can say temp. Let's do that. Let's just create a temporary value. We'll just call it temp. And we'll use temp to write the age. So we can say sprintf, right? And we can put the string in here, which is temp. Right, because we're going to write to that, and then we have our a formatted string, so we can say something like this, %d, just like you do with printf, and then pass it the student age. And we can do the same thing for the other one, but first we have to output it, so we can do fputs. Oops, not that. We want to do fputs temp. And then we want to do the same thing for the GPA. Let's try again. I'm just having a hard time with the copy and paste. Let's do it the mousy way. Okay, so now we have the student age, and now we want the grade. So we want to have 0.1f, and we say student and GPA, and we output the temp. But before we do that, we need to fputs, comma, and of course I forgot my FP, my file pointer. And I need to do that with this as well, FP. And so there we have that. And we need it here as well, FP. And so now we have that. And we don't need a comma at this point anymore. We have the student, and let's see if this worked. And what this sprintf did was it took, and just like printf, it takes the output from its age and it combines it into this string, and it takes that string and stores it in the temp variable. So let's see if it works. Let's go ahead and save it, and let's go ahead and compile it. Let's clear the screen. So let's go ahead and compile it. It works, and let's go ahead and write it, and let's see what our file has now. And you can see that it wrote exactly what we were attempting to write to the file. So if we wanted to write more records, if we actually had a list that we could loop through of records or anything like that, we could loop through an array of students, and we could do that. As a matter of fact, no, let's not even do that. I'll leave that as an exercise for you. You can create arrays just like anything of students, and when you create the arrays, then you can loop through them and do all that. And if we wanted to write another record, we can do it the hard way, and we can just say, for example, let's take all of this here. We can cut it. Did we cut too much? No, we didn't. So we can just say create write students, for lack of better terms, write students. And we don't even pass it to students, but we will pass it to file pointer because it needs that. And we go ahead and paste that code, and this will create the students, or we can call it write student, or maybe we can even have a function that says, okay, here's my student, right? And we can give it the name. For example, if we had the name and all of that, and we can take it and write everything that we have. So you can do it a whole lot of different ways. You can actually have a function that just takes the parameters, name, student, whatever, and then you can just have it write it. So in this case, it's writing the line, and we won't change anything. We have the string copy. Let's bring this back a little bit to make it more readable. And we write a student. And if we did this right, it should work. So let's go ahead and let's get rid of all this. And let's say write student. And we pass it to FP. And let's do this a few times. Matter of fact, instead of doing that, let's go ahead and do it like this. For int I equals 0, I less than, let's write 10 students, I plus plus. And let's just do that. And I know it's kind of pointless because we're writing the same data, but hopefully if you kept up with the tutorial, you know that how to create different data and how to write different data, and you can figure that out. So we have students, and we're going to write 10 students to a file. And one thing we didn't do in this file is we should have a return character somewhere. Otherwise, it's going to write them all in one line. So before we do that, let's go ahead and create. We can write the line at the end or at the beginning. It's just a matter of how the rules for your file. So the next thing we want to do, fputs, and we want to write a line at the end of every student. So there we have that. We save it, and let's see what it does. Will it compile? That's a big mystery. It didn't like write student, implicit declaration of function, write student. And it's saying that it doesn't find that. So what did we do wrong? We didn't. So we have write student here, file FP. So we have void write student. It finishes here, and we call write student here. How can it be function? Okay, let's see what's going on. Implicit, warning, implicit, write student, implicit. Let's see, write student, file FP. Oh, yes, of course. Okay, so you notice that file is supposed to be all uppercase, and I didn't do that way. It has to be file, otherwise it doesn't know because it didn't compile. So there, let's compile it and let's try it again. It didn't like that. Undeclared first use in this function student. Oh yeah, we didn't, of course we didn't pass the student, so we actually have to pass the student struct, or we can create it here. Didn't like the fact that it doesn't know about it, and we don't even need it down here. We don't need it at all because it's being handled over there. And typically you wouldn't necessarily do it. You wouldn't create the student just for the sake of creating the student and then passing it, but you might have a list of students, and then you might loop through the students and write those students as you go. So let's go see if this works. So let's go ahead and save our file, and let's go ahead and compile it. It's printf temp. It doesn't like it. Each undeclared element reported only once. Oh, it says we didn't move everything like we were supposed to, or me, not you. I don't want to shift the blame. So Control X. We move that up, and we don't have temp, and we need temp here. Are we missing anything else? Hopefully not. Let's go ahead and try it again. Save it. Let's go ahead and compile it. Too few arguments. Oh, now it's complaining that we have too few arguments. Wait a minute. Okay, write student, too few arguments for function. Okay, we must have left out the function pointer again somewhere. And yes, I did. So FP. So let's save it. And let's run it again. This time it compiles. Let's go ahead and write it. And it writes. And now we have students, and you can see that it wrote the student 10 times. Of course, you wouldn't necessarily do this. You wouldn't have the same item, but hopefully you get the picture. Hopefully you know how to write. You notice that when I was using write in a pen, it does different things. So a pen here in the file pointer, when I pass an A, it's for a pen. It will create the file. It doesn't exist. If the file exists, it will just add to the end of the file. For example, if I run this program again, if I go ahead and write exe, in this case, it'll overwrite everything. But if I change this to a pen, it'll just keep appending to the end of the file. So, you know, you just have to make that decision depending on what you're doing, and just keep that in mind. So there you are, how to write to a file. Thanks for watching. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe. If you don't, leave me a comment and I will do better next time. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Until next time.